All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. My name's Dr. Dan, and we are very lucky this evening because we're joined by Michael Dent. Michael's 30 years old. He lives in Mount Gambier. He grew up in Mount Gambier. You could say he's a country boy from Adelaide. You could say he was an average performer at school academically, and now he's moved his way up and he's achieved some fantastic things in the field of martial arts. Particularly, he's the champion in the Asia Pacific of Kyokushin. For those that aren't watching, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kyokushin is a bare knuckle martial arts where you can't punch above the head. It's bare knuckles, but you can kick and knee above the head. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. How you getting on?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for asking. Well, we spoke a couple of months ago when I was over in Europe, but there were some audio issues. So we're redoing tonight, and I appreciate your patience because it's actually my fault. So I'm sorry about that, mate.
No, that's all good, man.
So I just want to start by asking you, when I do martial arts and someone cracks me in the face, or let's say I go to spar with someone, I'm a very average martial artist at best, but don't you, like, I flinch a lot when someone whacks me in martial. Like, how do you not flinch? Were you a flincher at the start as well, or are you just like naturally you just love getting punched?
I don't think anyone loves getting punched. No, I was probably I would say it's a long time ago now, but I'd say that I think most people flinch, man, when you first start getting punches and kicks thrown at you. It's just a natural instinct, but you sort of just adapt. The more you do it, the more you see. It's like anything, you sort of condition your mind to being used to it, and the more you see it, the easier it is to not flinch.
Yeah.
Basically, not flinch and just be used to it. It becomes natural.
It's I don't know, I just can't get my head around it. I've recently just started doing a little bit of martial arts. It's nothing to talk about. It's not worth talking about, but we spoke before and you just recently fought a world champion. You fought the world champion in Kyokushin. And as much as we want to talk about how everything's rosy now and you're winning all the tournaments, you did mention before that you recently got knocked out you fought the world champion. I mean, this is a bare knuckle martial arts. It's not, you're not having scones and sipping homemade tea. You know, it's the real deal. So, like, you said before that when you fought him, you got knocked out recently. I just want to first start by asking you, does that make you take a step back into my position? Does it make you kind of want to flinch a bit more, or are you like Jonathan Brown in the AFL where you just over time you don't even look where you're going to mark, against the pack?
Oh no, I definitely don't think it will make me flinch anymore. Yeah, all the time at training, man. So as far as getting hit, that's not the thing that bothers me. I haven't been knocked out before. It's a first for me, so it'll be interesting to see when I come back. I'm having a little bit of time off just to get over it a little bit, just for obvious health reasons. And when I come back, it'll be interesting to see how it all goes. But I think it'll just be business as usual, man. He just caught me with a very, very good kick.
Yeah.
Hit me right on the button under the jaw, and yeah, that was it. Basically.
Yeah, wow. How long did you take to prepare for that fight?
Most martial artists don't do it. There's a couple of us that do, but I just fight all the time. So I fought, I think the Nationals was, I want to say 3 weeks before that, or 4 weeks before that. So look, most fighters don't do it, especially ours, because it's brutal leg kicks. So it takes a bit to get over fights, but I like to just keep fighting and fighting and fighting so that it's just natural. I'm never nervous. It's not the norm sort of thing. So, to answer your question, basically this whole year I've been training for fights. So like nothing specific. Like we had the big fight in Myanmar. That was probably not my highlight, but that's what I trained for really hard for this year. Like everything was geared towards that, and that was in June. And then you just continue on. Take a week or two after a big tournament, especially that Myanmar one, because I had 5 or 6 fights for the day. Take a little while to recover, and then back into it.
You know, they say, is it the same as like when you fall off a motorbike? You've just kind of got to get back on there, or in a way.
Sort of like when you lose, yeah, definitely good to jump back in there. But with anything in the head, like I'm not silly. I've got a life after martial arts, and it was I'm not going to jump back in and fight again. I had the opportunity to fight in New Zealand a couple of weeks after. I just said, nah, I'm not fighting then. And then I was actually meant to fight again next weekend in Griffith, and I sort of just pulled the pin on it and still training flat out, but yeah, not going to risk getting hit in the head a couple of times in succession because I don't want brain damage. So
yeah. So when you say you need to have a break for health reasons, are you saying you do get some, you like, is there concussion damage? Is there neurological? Yeah.
Yeah, concussed. I was my friend and your friend as well. Actually, Terry was there on the night, and it wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't a brutal knockout, but I was unconscious for a little while, and then since then I've just had basically just an issue with where your jaw joins up into your skull, sort of whether it's ligament damage. I've been to the doctor and stuff, but yeah, I'm just waiting till it's all sort of right before I risk getting hit, basically.
So after getting a head kick from a world champion bare knuckle fighter, do your motor skills decrease? Like, do you notice any disability with your eyes or Nah, nothing like that.
Nah, it's not like it's not like boxing or mixed martial arts where you're consistently getting hit in the head. That'd be the first time being hit in the head in a fight, almost ever. So yeah, they're bad knockouts because they're kicks, and I've knocked a lot of people out with kicks. But like me personally, it's one hit. It's not. Yeah, obviously it's not good for you to get hit in the head. But that's probably what I like about my martial art is that it's quite brutal. In fact, even my friends who do MMA and stuff, they would say that the Kyokushin fights with no gloves are more painful than any other style of fighting because they're pretty heavy on the body, but you don't get the brain trauma. So for me, you learn mental toughness, discipline, you learn to fight, but it's not like a boxer who would get punched in the head 200 times in a fight, it's not, I don't know, it's better for you, basically.
Unreal. We're gonna go back to your upbringing in a second because we want to create some value for the young people listening. But let's talk about. I mean, you're the world champion in the Asia Pacific. What does it do to your mental resilience, as you said before? When you excel amazingly and you win these titles. And then you go back. I mean, you boxed against you Kyokushin against a world champion.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do to your psyche? The fact that you've been kicked in the head. Does it make you think I'm going to quit now? I'm going to retire. I've had enough. Or do you want to keep pushing forward? What does that do to you? Because I think a lot of people have been demoralised from that.
It was quite, it's funny. I always wondered the same thing. I wanted to go through my whole career without getting knocked out. And I always wondered how I'd react, but nah, it's fine, man. It's just like part of the fight game, basically. So next year I'm fighting for a world title. It's in a different group to the guy I just fought, but so, man, it's all just, if I want to be a world champion, which I do, I've got to be able to beat those people. And to be honest, man, it didn't go that long, the fight, but it's just not a lucky shot. It was a well set up shot, but that just happens, man.
Wow.
That happens. If you got to lose and you get clipped. And to be honest, they brought a team of 10 over this Japanese team, and they beat us all. Like we all got smoked. So yeah, and we had a very good team in. So you just pick yourself up and whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
Keep going.
So growing up, when you're at school. Let's go back to, when you're at school. You grew up in, I guess you could say, rural or semi-country Adelaide. Were you a high achiever at school academically?
No. Just did what I needed to do to get through. Even going into year 11 and 12, I knew that I wanted to go to university, basically. But yeah, I just cruised, man. It's not that great to say, but just cruised through school. Sport was probably always my pursuit, really, rather than anything academic. I never did badly at school, never failed anything or nothing like that, but I definitely wasn't didn't have the top ATAR or anything. In South Australia, the top tier score.
Yeah.
It was always just middle of the road basically.
When you know, like, you're obviously a high achiever in martial arts. That kind of self-belief in sport, is that something that you had from a young age?
Did I have a self-belief?
Did you really believe in yourself? Did you think I could be a world champion, Kyokushin, or Asia Pacific world? No?
Nah, probably not. I think I always had, looking back on it, because I used to play footy and do athletics, running and stuff, and a lot of basketball, and always played at a higher level, but I was never ever the best on the team. So I think, to be honest, I really just came into my own in the martial arts side of things, and even when I started the martial arts, like to start with, I think I won my first fight, and then I probably went through a streak of losing like the next 4 or 5, and then, I don't know, if you just stick at stuff, and like, I've always been a hard trainer, so just stick at it, keep training, and people drop away, and you get better, sort of. That's how it works.
Yeah. So, like, when you did start doing martial arts and you did encounter a streak of losses, at what, like, you obviously love the training. Is that what pushed you through, or did you get, or even at the start after losing, did you think, wait a sec, I could make something of myself here, I could be something great here?
No, I definitely didn't think that. Like, to be honest, when I first started up, I didn't even know that I was going to compete. I did compete pretty early on in my martial arts career. I started boxing to start with, and I was just doing it for fitness. I was injured at that time, so I couldn't play footy because I hurt my leg. So boxing, I was using my upper body. So I started doing that. Then what happened? I was actually in Adelaide, living in Adelaide, and then I moved back down to Mount Gambier. I wanted to do kickboxing. Went to the kickboxing gym, and then there's also at the same kickboxing gym there's a karate school. And funny story, I met my ex-girlfriend who was a black belt and a fighter as well. Met her, and that sort of, basically because of her I got into it, and then we just went around Australia fighting, and then I went from there.
Growing up, did your parents ever say to you, Michael, you're extraordinarily special, you could be something great? Or was that kind of gradual or was there a kind of gradual self-belief over time? Did you ever feel you were extraordinary or different from anyone else being young?
No way, in any way. My parents are great. They've always done everything for me. They're always positive, but they definitely didn't ever say that.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit more realistic than that, I would say. They're realists. I don't know. It just builds. The self-belief, especially with fighting, just builds. The more that you win, the more that you believe, and if you're confident and you have the belief, you start to win more.
Yeah.
As soon as you get that ball rolling, and that's what happened to me. I actually moved to Melbourne, and then I moved down to Gippsland and got involved in a gym in Gippsland that are really, really strong as well. And I'd already had a very good base from the gym in Mount Gambier, who taught me a lot of good footwork and stuff, and then it all just clicked into gear once I got surrounded by some bigger dudes, and once you get that belief rolling, it just kept going.
It's quite fascinating. So for, like, let's say kids watching and they want to be great at something, not just martial arts, or they want to be, they want to be a physicist, or they want to be a doctor, or they want to be a martial artist, or an athletic runner. Because your story is a story of gradual refinement and improvement over time.
Just consistency, man.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah. So for anyone watching that feels like they're not at the top of their class in sport or studies, what's your message to them?
Probably that, man. Just effort and consistency will get you there in the end.
Yeah.
Basically, like, I find that, effort and consistency are more important than natural ability.
Yeah.
And the people with natural ability are great to start with, but often because they have natural ability, they don't try as much and they don't put in the effort. And the people that outwork and grind are the ones that are going to end up being very, very good. if you get someone with natural ability that also grinds and puts in the effort, then you've got a world champion.
Yeah.
Basically.
Did you see that growing up? Did you see people that were better than you at something, more naturally talented, and were you demoralized by them when you saw them, or did it motivate you to work harder?
That's exactly what happened, to be honest. Like, all of my mates, they're all high-level footy players and basketballers, and I was always, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, definitely not in the top 10% anyway, and that, I would say, pushed me more than anything else, is that, yeah, I wanted to be a part of that group that were in the top percentile sort of thing.
Yeah. And so you're 30 years old now. How old were you when you won the Asia Pacific Kyokushin title?
30. I turned 30 the day before.
Yeah. So growing up as a 15, 16-year-old, I mean, it's not something that's happened overnight, and it's not something that you've had a natural. You yourself said that you haven't had a natural talent for it, but 14 years of grinding and hard work and enjoying what you do.
Got there. I think I started boxing when I was 18, so that's 12. Started Kyokushin when I was 19. So yeah, 11 years, man. 11 years of just training flat out.
Because I think
and putting yourself out there to fight, to be honest, because you get beaten up, you get pretty sore, like your legs get chopped up, you get pretty beaten up, and then just continually just jumping on the mat and doing it again, and it gets easier and easier.
Yeah. A lot of young kids, and even kids that were watching, or when I was young, going back to that thing when you see other people in the group, you're not the fittest, or you might be a little overweight, or you might get teased for being fat, and you're not the best, in academics or sport. It's easy to get demoralized. But you've shown that gradual refinement and improvement over time. Can you tell me about the ultra marathon runner that we talked about previously? Can you tell the story for us?
David Goggins?
Yeah.
I follow a few of them, man. Yeah, I think his book, Can't Hurt Me. His book's called Can't Hurt Me. Yeah, I love it, man. He's just a very, very hard man. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he used to be a big, overweight guy who was a cleaner, that sort of felt like he had no future, and he was actually had a pretty rough upbringing as well, with a father that used to beat him. If you ever want to read a good book, read it, because it is really, really good. And I just love, there's a few people that I follow who are of the same sort of mould, just that mental toughness and mental fortitude. Like he did, I don't know if you know Bud's training for the Navy SEALs. It's meant to be, like, they call it Hell Week, and it's just a week of intense grind, basically. And he did it 3 times. He ended up, pretty full on, and now he had his career in the military as a Navy SEAL, and now he's an ultra marathon runner. He also set the world record for the most chin-ups in a day, which was over 24 hours. It was 4,000 and something chin-ups, something crazy like that. But yeah, I love it. Stuff like that gives me a lot of motivation.
What's an ultra marathon?
Or, I want to say it's like 100 miles. I'm pretty sure he had to do 100 miles in 24 hours, I think. But yeah, some ridiculous. I don't know if that's right. I'd have to look it up. I don't know. But it was a long way. A lot more than a normal marathon anyway.
So he's grown up, demoralised by being beaten by his dad, obese, quite a low-level job, and I mean that respectfully, but as a cleaner. And he's made a transformation into an ultra-marathon runner, world record chin-up.
And a Navy SEAL.
And a Navy SEAL. Why is a Navy? What's so difficult about a Navy SEAL?
I'm pretty sure they're just the most elite soldiers in the US military, man. And that being said, from what I've heard, like, pretty much one of the best in the world at what they do. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a cool story.
It is cool. It is a cool story because it gives hope to remind anyone that it doesn't matter where you are now. I mean, if you're young, you've got such a massive advantage because you've got time.
Yeah, for sure.
and you can change. And I think, statistically, the older you get, the harder it is to change, but it isn't impossible.
No, for sure.
Look at you. Look at you and David Goggins.
Yeah.
I've heard of stories of, I've seen, little mini video stories of people that have been overweight their whole lives as well, and at the age of 50 they picked up a weight and they've become bodybuilders, really accomplished bodybuilders.
Yeah, man. You're only as old as you feel.
Yeah.
I do agree though, obviously it's easier if you start at a young age, so for anyone listening, if you want to achieve great things, start as young as you can.
Yeah. Start as young as you can, but if you don't, it's okay.
It's not over. Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, and don't let yourself become a statistic, even though it's more difficult. Statistically, people get older, harder to change. Who cares? Don't be that statistic. You're in control of your mind. It's your mind. You're an adult. You've got a decision to make. It's either a yes or a no.
Yeah, and everyone's on their own checking, man. You can start whenever you can.
Yeah, no, it's so inspirational. So, training at a high level such as yourself, does it come at a cost? What takes its toll? What have you had to pay the price of to be in the position that you are now? What life costs have you paid?
A lot, man. Like some social stuff. I don't really see that as that much of a cost, but not as much now. But particularly when I was younger, like I made some decisions to not go out and party. Well, go out, but not be controlled. You know what I mean? Especially having to make weight, things like that. Like I couldn't really go out and drink beer and that kind of stuff. I made a lot of sacrifices for food because I'm always cutting weight. Again, that's just healthy lifestyle. Probably the hardest things that I've sacrificed are probably relationships. It's sort of hard to explain to people, but if you're training every morning, training every night, and have a job like I do, where I work away Monday to Friday, then you come home and you've got to train Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's definitely cost me at least my last relationship. But that's all part of it, basically.
Have you always, has that always been the case with you? Have you ever had a long functional relationship, or has that ever since you started Kyokushin at 19, it's just been a relationship's not possible for me?
No. I've definitely had relationships, but I mean, probably the longest relationship and definitely the best one I've ever had is with someone who's also a fighter.
Yeah.
Who's the person that got me into karate, and I still would say that she's still probably one of my best friends at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, when I retire, which will be in a few years or whatever, it'll be a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, I'm seeing someone now anyway, so it's not impossible. It's just not that easy.
Yeah. So it is possible, and it makes it a lot easier to achieve great things if the person that you're with probably understands you, but also engages in that similar interest.
Absolutely. And they understand the diet, they understand not being able to go out and eat food, not being able to go out and drink, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, let's say there's a young person watching, and when you get to 15, I mean, for me, when I was 15, 16, drinking is so heavily ingrained in the Australian culture, and it's so difficult to escape. It's.
Yep.
What's your advice? I mean, what's your advice to someone young who all their friends drink, and all their friends that are cool and they're popular and they go to parties and they drink? What's your advice to them if they're young and just they're a uniquely young person, they want to be wildly successful in something, they're dreaming about it, but all their friends drink? What's your advice to them? Do they completely disassociate from them? B, do they go out and restrict themselves, or do they just have a couple, or do they drink and get, what do they do?
Look, man, I'm probably not the best person to ask, because as much as I had sacrificed fighting, look, man, I was 18 once and 21 once, and definitely went out and had my fair share of partying. Still, every now and again, let my hair down, like, still do, basically. I just was able to, and what I say to people is, when I had big events coming up, particularly when I was younger, because now I can sort of control it. It's not a problem, but I didn't. I just restrained myself for the 2 months leading up to a fight. I don't know. You got to be a bit careful, because you're only 18 once and you're only 21 once. Like, don't write yourself off. You've still got to experience life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some of my best mates, like, we've had great times out together, sort of thing. Like, I wouldn't want anyone to give that up. You've still got to have a social life and have friends, but yeah, you've just got to be controlled. So if you have, like, I don't know, if you're in year 12 and you're 18 and you've got year 12 exams coming up, pretty important time in your life, like, yeah, probably ease off for the few months before the exams and just be smart about it, really.
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging anyone to drink, because it's not healthy to binge drink, especially not when you're young, but you've still got to experience life anyway.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, it's something that can't be swept under the rug. It's the elephant in the room. It's so heavily ingrained in our culture that it's an issue that, you know, we're all, you know, I think almost all Australians will have to deal with growing up. And I think it's refreshing to hear from you authentically and genuinely that you haven't had to hide yourself away and be isolated to get to where you are now. In fact, do you think going out and having a social aspect has helped you get to where you are now? Or do you think you'd be in a better position you are now if you did live in a cave?
Oh, no, I don't think you would be. You'd almost go insane. Especially, yeah. I don't know, man. You've still got to have a social, especially fighting. Like, it's such a high pressure, intense environment that you need to have a release. Now, I'm not saying to go out and write yourself off, but you still need to have a social release, and you need to be able to get away from it and go and see friends. The thing that's lucky about me is the majority of my close friends are all fighters, so you're all in the same boat, sort of thing, and you're generally all fighting at the same time. So yeah,
I agree with you totally. And you know, growing up, you know, going to school, I got, you know, quite reasonable grades. In university, I got reasonable grades, and I made some okay athletic achievements and some achievements in business that I'm proud of. And I can say that during that time, I have always gone out. And there's people that I went to school with, Melbourne University, some super high achievers, way higher achievers than me academically, and they would sit in the library, and you know, each to their own, but they'd sit in the library for 12 hours a day. Like, they'd sleep in the library. But I don't think the amount of extra effort that they put in compared to me, I don't think their grades were that much different.
I'm very much the same. Yeah. Look, I juggled a bachelor's degree, working full-time and training full-time, and then I did my master's recently, working full-time and studying twice a day.
Yeah.
And still get through, especially particularly my master's, I still got good grades. Bachelor's degree was a bit of a learning curve. I didn't go that great in my bachelor's, but hey, I got through it. And at the end of the day, it actually hasn't affected me at all. I'm pretty sure 2 years after you graduate, people don't care about what grades you got. They care about how you've done in your job.
I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree.
It's not year 12. I mean, if you want to get into medicine or if you want to do something like that, you've got to get your year 12 score. So it's very important. But I don't know. I don't think anyone's ever asked me what grades I got in my MBA. To be honest, most of them haven't even asked if I've done a postgraduate degree. Like, they're just
yeah.
It's more my references from previous jobs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot, and you know, as frowned upon as going out and not necessarily getting drunk, but just, you know, going out and partying and being social. You know, and as frowned upon as it is by the old people to say, oh, you need to do this and this, you actually build a lot of social skills going out. And you get to know different types of people. You get yourself into confronting situations, and You learn to deal with, people. Yeah, you learn to deal with all different types of personalities, and having grades is one thing, but the ability to deal with all different kinds of people in the real world is an equally, if not more important skill.
Oh, it's like way more important. Interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
And we're all society losing them because we talk a lot less than what they probably did when me and you were in school. There's a lot less face-to-face contact. It's all
Yeah.
on the phone and text messages and emails. It's companies are looking for interpersonal skills. They're not really. Grades are important because they show that you have the ability to knuckle down, research, whatnot. The discipline. But at the end of the day, no matter what job you're in, you've got to sell yourself and you've got to be able to communicate with people.
Yeah, it's a massive skill. It's so important. And I'm actually reading a book at the moment on public speaking, and the ability to talk in front, not talk in front of thousands of people on a stage or anything, but just to present something to 3 or 4 people. I think it's a massive skill. And when I've over the years when I've continued to go out, and I still continue to go out. I'm nearly 30, and I call it dusting off the social cobwebs. You got to dust off the old cogs. We're social beings, aren't we?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, for sure, man.
I don't think it's healthy to hide under a rock, and I think the more you dust off those social cobwebs, that 12 hours of sitting in a library studying, you can probably, if you dust off the cobwebs, 12 hours, it's all numbers. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, like I'd rather do two.
There's got to be a point of diminishing returns there. Like 12 hours, I'd say you're not getting much after 4.
Yeah.
Even that.
Totally agree.
There's other people's brain different to mine.
Yeah. Which they could, but I don't know. We're all human at the end of the day, and I think that. Me personally, I went to university for 7 years, and to study for longer than after 2 hours, stuff starts to.
I agree.
You got to go out and get some. Yeah, for sure. Go out and get some fresh air. And Michael, what's on your? Have you got a vision board? What's on your vision board?
Oh, what's on my vision board? I do. What's on my vision board? I've got. Sorry, it's in my house, which is in Melbourne. But I have lifetime goals. Then I have, I believe, 5-year goals and 2019 goals, and then I've split the board down the middle. And on the other side, I've got actions to achieve them goals. And then I pull the actions off of that. I'm a bit OCD in this sense. Write them on sticky notes and stuck them on my mirror.
Yeah.
So when people come around to my house, they see writing in texture over my mirror, and they see sticky notes all over my bathroom. But hey, it works, so it's all good.
How important is it to write down your goals? Do you have to write down your goals to be something great?
I don't know if you have to. It probably depends how people function, but I like to write them down so that I can think of them when I get up. I obviously have a lot of early starts with what I do, so I don't not at home all the time. Like, I work away from home a lot, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just a bit of added motivation. I have stupid little things that I do. And when I wake up in the morning, seeing things written on a board in front of me motivate me to actually get out and go try to lose some weight. if that's what I have to do, I have to do it. So I like to write them down. It also just makes me feel better, man. Writing them down and seeing them, it's therapeutic to write them all down. Every now and again, I won't really change the goals, but like a few weeks ago, I scrapped all the sticky notes on my mirror and wrote some different stuff down. Just, I don't know, refreshes the motivation. So,
how long have you been writing down your goals for? How long have you been doing that, cutting it and doing all that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I'm so originally from Mount Gambier. I moved to Victoria maybe 7 years ago, and I had a look in my room, just the hall. I actually had written in the room down in the hall, so I would have been 21. I had written lifetime goals 10-year goals, 5-year goals. Yeah, it's quite funny to have a look. They change. Some of them I've achieved, some of them are pretty cool as well. I suppose this year, like even the one on my board that I wrote at the start of this year, and some pretty major ones, like I was able to cross off some lifetime ones, even this year, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's so good. Well done. What a spin out it is.
Yeah.
So when you go to change a goal, like you just said before, they do change over time. When you go to change your goal, you've got them written down. Do you feel like you're cheating your younger self when you go to change your goals? Is it okay to change your goals?
Yeah. Man, like I don't know. I'm not that stringent with it really. Like it's not. You live your own life. You do what you want to do. And like my brain when I wrote the last lot of goals that are sitting in my room was a lot less developed than what it is now.
Yeah.
The ones I have written on my board now have stuff like. It's a long way away, but have stuff like family goals and things like that. When I was a 21-year-old, like all I wanted to do was go live in Holland and be a professional kickboxer. So like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, things change for sure.
Yeah, they do. They certainly
probably achieve more than what you thought. You can achieve a lot in not that long a time.
Yeah.
So as I've matured, I've been able to push them out a little bit more and put a little bit more ambitious stuff in there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like, you look back at you... I mean, I've changed my goals over the years, and they've shifted. My focus has shifted, and it's been quite challenging for me when I have changed my goals, and a part of me, I found it a bit more difficult than by what it sounds for you when you change your goals, but I almost feel like I've cheated my younger self, but I need to remind myself that I respect the younger person and who I was and how I used to think, and I thought this is the pinnacle of how one should live their life. But you need to give yourself more respect and remember that you are smarter than you were yesterday, and remember that tomorrow you would hope that you're going to be smarter than you were today.
Yeah, of course. I definitely don't kick myself out of any of the ones that I've changed paths, like that I've changed paths on. To be honest, the ones that I've written down now are more ambitious than back then anyway, you know what I mean? Some are still the same, be a world champion, like there's that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't beat myself up too much over it. It's just a guideline, really. All the way that I see goals, I think goals is really, really important, but it's just, the reason it's important is for personal development, so that you're always going forward, not stagnating. If you're going forward in a different direction, you're still going forward.
Yeah. So, how important is it for a human to have goals? Should every human have goals?
I think so, yeah. I've heard the debate that, if you're too goal orientated, this may be me, but if you're too goal orientated, it could be depressing, you know what I mean? Because you just continue to set goals and you're always striving, you're never happy with, you're never satisfied.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the argument that I hear, that if you are a continual goal setter, you're never satisfied, so you're never settled and you're never happy. But I don't know. I think you can have both. I think you can still set goals, and that's how you. I don't know. I'd almost guarantee that anyone's successful, like in the business world, in the sporting world, the vast majority of them would have goals written in front of them.
Successful as in financially successful, or?
Not just that. I don't really find. Obviously, financial success is one form of success, but just successful in what they want to achieve, whether that's being happy, whether that's winning a world title, whether that's, I don't know, speaking 10 languages, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just, I think that if you want to achieve things, that to me, you just, even if they're not written down, you have to have something in your mind that you want to do, because otherwise, you're like a boat without a rudder.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have any goals, how are you going to achieve anything? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. It's so important to have goals because it gives you purpose, direction, and some clarity, I guess, about... Because life can be a bit confusing sometimes. There's so many different things we could be doing, or we could be doing nothing, or we're overwhelmed by what everyone else is doing. We feel depressed because someone has something fancy. But if you have goals, your own goals, it gives you direction. That's one thing. But I think the second thing as well is to appreciate that getting to that goal is not... It's great to have achievements and it feels great to reflect and go, oh, I did this and that. But something that I think that took me a while to realise and appreciate is that it's the process that's so satisfying.
Yeah, no, the process, that's what it's all about. I'm exactly the same. And I'd add to that as well, when you do achieve something, like I find when I do achieve something, I try not to live in the moment for too long. Some people would play silly as well, but I find if you can look back at the moment and feel that bit of satisfaction. But if you are content with, like, say if you achieve a goal, if you win something, if you achieve a grade and you're content with that happiness and you just keep looking at it and feel all good inside, then you're not going to move forward anymore. So what I try to do is, once I've achieved something, like, hey, I might look back and feel good about it, and every now and again might watch a video or do something like that, but I try to get it out of my head and put the next one, bang, like, right, we're going for this now.
What you're saying is congratulate yourself, but not too much.
Don't live in it.
Yeah.
You're just, you're content. You're not going to achieve anything else.
There's a music video called Wear Sunscreen, and it goes, don't congratulate yourself too much or berate yourself either. So I think it's important to have that ability to self-assess and say, I'm doing this good, but I could be doing it better. Look at yourself from a God's eyes, but a devil's eyes as well. And do your parents watch you do martial arts?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because they're scared they'll see me get knocked out. They're very supportive. They went when I played footy. They went to every single football game that I've ever played. Every single basketball game would drive 500 kilometres to Adelaide to go watch a footy game or whatever. But yeah, fighting's a bit different, which is silly because, to be honest, footy's just as dangerous. But I don't know. It's a bit confronting. It is when you see someone that you watch, someone that you love. I've done it before. It's confronting to watch. Yeah, they support me. They still do. They're happy for me. I just call them when I'm finished and tell them they're okay, or, well, yeah, always tell them they're okay. That's it.
Do they know about the other day when you fought the world champion? What happened?
Yes.
What was the response?
Wasn't too bad because I was a little bit cryptic. I just sent him a message and said that I lost. And then, actually, I think someone else might have told him that I got knocked out. So they knew that I was alive, so it was okay. Yeah, I was a bit careful. I don't know, they were actually going to watch it because it's live, like it's streamed and stuff on the internet, and they were going to watch it. And I knew who I was fighting, and I just said, look, don't watch this one. Like, wait until I tell you to watch it just in case. And yeah,
we're gonna post some.
You never know.
We're gonna post some links from some of your fights after this video. So check the comments box below, and we're gonna put those up there. How do you? So I want to talk to you about back to your vision board and your to-do lists. Do you does it feel? Do you cross them off with a pen? Do you scrunch them up and put them in the bin? How does it feel when you tick something off your to-do list or your vision board?
Probably not enough. Like I don't think that isn't something that I really focus on. What do? I'll probably just refresh it more, man. And like I pulled the board down. I did it the other day and scrubbed a few things off that I'd already done. I've crossed them out before. Like I was saying the other day with my post-it notes, I just ripped them all off, basically, and put new ones up.
Yeah.
A bit more pressure. But I probably should do that a little bit more proactively, especially the 2019 ones and the daily sort of things that I need to be doing. But yeah, it does feel good. It felt good the other day when I crossed off I wanted to win an international fight, basically. That was my goal. Well, my first goal was just to fight, and then my second goal was to win a fight. But the one to win it, that's a big deal. Like, no Australians won in our organisation had won an international fight before, and me and one of my best mates both did it on the same day in different divisions. So that was a big deal. So I felt very good to cross that off. What else did I have on there? Like I'm learning Spanish at the moment, and I had written up on the board to learn a second language, which felt good to sort of, you know, say that I can do that now. Get my masters was another one that I crossed off. Yeah, it is. It's good. But I look at all the rest because I put not a fair few, but I do have a few on there. And I'm like, oh man, I'm falling behind on that. I need to do this a bit better. But yeah, anyway.
How do you find you've obviously got mentors and people that you look up to? How have you found your mentors? Do you actively look for them? Do you come across them? How do you know who's a mentor? Do you ask them for mentorship? Does it just happen? How do you know someone's a good mentor?
I don't actively seek mentors. To be honest, in the martial art world, particularly what I do, they're not hard to find. My instructors, they're all awesome, man. Like, I don't know, all of them from Mount Gambier, the people that I've trained with there, particularly in Taragon, like Sensei Dave and another guy, Ceballos, and my friends are also pretty strong mentors because they're all very high achieving in fighting. Like my best mate comes third in the World Cup, like in the heavyweight division, and they're all awesome. And they're not just good martial artists, particularly the ones in, like the guy in Taragon and in Melbourne as well, and Mount Gambier, they're all the same, but they also achieve stuff outside of martial arts, like they're either business owners, or my instructor in Melbourne's like a pretty well-renowned, famous sort of martial artist who's achieved some pretty crazy things. So yeah, not hard to find. In work, I suppose, yeah, I just look for people who have done similar stuff that I want to do. So, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. If you want mentors, there's no shortage in the martial arts world. There are some frauds and phony martial artists, but if you pick the right sort of martial art and the right gyms, man, there's some pretty inspiring sort of people. So
yeah. How can you pick a phony? How do you know if someone's, full of crap? How do you know if this person how do you know who to listen to? Do you know how do you know whose advice to take and whose advice not to take? There's everyone. I mean, I give advice to people. How do people know I'm not? How do people know I'm the type of person that you should listen to?
That's a good question.
I mean, I might sound convincing. Sorry.
Once you've trained in martial arts for a fair while, there'd be styles that are a little bit bogus.
Yeah.
Anything to me, anything non-contact is a bit bogus. If you want to be a fighter, like you have to fight. You know what I mean? Like you can't. If you want to know that in the heat of battle, like that you can handle yourself, like you're not going to be able to do it if you don't hit each other.
Yeah.
You need to know that. You know what I mean? When someone's going full tilt, you know basically how to fight. In our style, bogus. There's not that many bogus people, to be honest. But I'm pretty picky. Like picky in terms of, I don't know. My instructor in Mount Gambier has achieved lots of stuff. My instructor in Dragon, like he's coached three people that have won. Not one, but so I got a first, but someone who's got a second in the world tournament, and like he's coached some pretty high-ranking people, and you just know when he teaches you, like he knows what he's talking about. The guy in Melbourne, his name's Judd Reed. If you want to look someone up, look him up. He lived in Japan for 3 years in the Uchideshi program, which is where you live and train full time. I think it was 18 to 21. You train 3 times a day, not allowed outside the dojo. Like it's very full on. And then he did a thing called 100-man kumite, which he did 100 fights in a row, and that is insane. You just get I'm talking 20-second breaks in between. I think they're 1.5 minute rounds, and just get. We do it for our black belt. So for me to get my black belt, Terry, both of our friends, and anyone to get their black belt in our style, you have to do 40 full contact fights in a row, and 40 is insane. Like you get destroyed. You basically get completely torn down. You can't defend yourself. You just got to take it, and you've got to show spirit and just not give up. Basically, well, he did 100, and 100. I've done the 40 for my black belt, and it's like the hardest thing I've ever done. I can't imagine what 100 would feel like. But yeah, so someone like that, you know that he's legit. Like he's the real deal. I'm lucky. I'm blessed. All of my trainers, wherever I go, are all really good. My mentors are my friends. So I go down to Geelong a lot to train with Terry, and there's another guy, Samuel, his brother Gabriel, like.
You there?
Yep. Yeah, mate. Yep.
Sorry, so you go down to Geelong with your mate Sam to see Terry?
Yeah, Sam and Gabriel. Like, there's a lot, man. There's another guy down in Taraga, my best mate Dave. They are all legit. You only have to know because I spar with them and they touch me up. They're very, very handy. So, yeah, there isn't any phonies anyway. But I don't know. You'd spot one pretty quick anyway.
Yeah. I guess even like, outside sport and stuff. I mean, I've got, mentors in business and stuff like that. Some people can sound very convincing, and just because they're older and they sound convincing, just be aware. And I think the greatest mentors aren't the ones that tell you and say you need to do this. They put the ball in your court. And instead of telling you what to do, they'll ask you a question and let you make the answer.
My boss does that to me all the time. I work in sales, so I know all about phonies.
Yeah.
And my boss says to me all the time, man, like I ring him up, and it's a pretty sort of like it's a corporate job. My boss will say to me, he'll just say it, like, he told me when I first started with him, he said, look, I don't mind you coming to me for help, but if you come to me for help, if you come to me with a question, I want you to have what your solution is. If it's wrong, I'm not gonna be angry or anything like that. But if you come to me with a question, I want you to have thought of a solution and come to me with both, and then I'll help you either way.
Wow.
Whether it's right, he'll tell me it's not right, but he said I don't really care. Like you can't just keep coming with questions. You need to come with solutions as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. He sounds like an amazing leader. I mean, there's a difference between a manager and a leader. A leader. Yeah, I mean, I'm reading a book at the moment on coaching habits, highly effective coaching habits, and I think one of the key underpinning principles of the book is you've got two ears and you got one mouth. And you just use that ratio accordingly. Listen more, talk less, ask questions instead of telling people. And I need to take my own advice sometimes.
For sure.
But people, I think, and mentors can sit there and bark, or people that try to mentor you or try to tell you what to do can sit there and bark and moan and preach. Nothing worse than a preacher. Whereas anyone that's, the things that's why people say it's good to speak to a counsellor, because what a counsellor does is listen. And when they get you to say it out loud, that's how you learn. When you say it, you learn the most when you're saying it and teaching it.
Yep. For sure, man.
I think the best coaches get their students to figure the answer out, and they're just there to kind of facilitate that.
Exactly, for sure, man. They let you do your own thing. They're just there in the background, but they're very important as well.
If someone wants to find you to get, for some tips or something like that, where can they find you?
Where can they find me? I do have a Facebook account, but I don't use it very often. I try not to use that much social media, to be honest, man. I mean, I could give you my email address. I'm not sure, man.
What's your email?
Instagram account. They can follow me on Instagram and probably see some cool photos and stuff like that. It's my Instagram tag is Doobarg, Doobarg. Don't even ask, but that's my Instagram name. There's plenty of photos and stuff on that. I'm always happy to answer messages or anything like that, but I'm not on social media that much. I sort of choose not to be.
Thank you so much for your time, Michael. Absolute pleasure, mate.
All good. No dramas.
You take it easy. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
See you, man.
See you, bro. Bye.